Okay, so, hi, hello, welcome back to another Creepypasta Story video. Today, Creepypasta I'm going to be reading is called Aggie, but before I get into it, I do want to say a few things. First off, the video is a one take, so if you hear me stumble, mumble, fumble, and mess up my words, I'm sorry, this is a one take. And second thing I do want to say, please consider using code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. It is code GOONS, and you can use that to get 10% off at checkout. But outside that, let's get into it. This Creepypasta is called Aggie. Children are fascinating creatures. I can't help but marvel at the way they act and the way that they think. Their minds are molded so easily, so effortlessly, like the softest of dough in the strongest of hands. I worry that I will never understand this child, though, and how she thought. These things drifted through my head as I examined the dimly lit room. The doors and windows were taped off with the crime scene ribbon, the sticky mess on the floor being sampled by forensic teams. The sight before me was grisly. What was once an 8-year-old lay on the ground. One would be able to tell what she was just by looking at her. Her head was hardly attached, if only by the spinal column. It lolled grotesquely to the side. The syrupy liquid coagulated after all these hours. One eye was missing from her skull, from her skull, and sitting a few feet away. There was a gap where her stomach used to be, as if bitten through by a beast. Her innards lay strewn around her. It was like a party popper on a New Year's. Ghastly slash marks adorned her tiny wrists, her hands, and even her fingers. They were all crusted with blood and shredded, and there was shredded bodily tissue, most likely from who or what that was after her. Clearly, something wanted her dead. Her parents were both in a similar condition. Her mother, her father, and even her grandmother. They were all strewn all about the living room. The place itself was a bloodbath, and that made my stomach turn. It was clear that there was a struggle. There were toys, dolls, puppets, and blocks all flung around the place, as well as magazines and broken glass. The living room looked like nightmare fuel. I gagged at the smell of blood and insides. They had to be at least 3 days old. It was all becoming too much to me, so dizzily, I turned and I walked away from the scene. Perhaps somewhere else in the house would be easier to stomach. I found myself upstairs once the days passed, and from the looks of it, it was the child's room. There were no sign of struggle in her room. Everything was all peaceful and everything was in place. Except one thing. There was a notebook. There was just a little school notebook that laid on the floor. I plucked it from the ground, and turning it over in my hand, I nearly dropped it out of shock. There was a crusty, bloody lettering covered it. There were symbols, signals, and signs. A face was scrawled onto the paper. It was almost on every page. There was a stitched up, twisted face. The eyes were blacked out with tiny lines through them. They were like buttons. It looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place it. A small piece of paper fluttered out of the pages and landed on the floor. I knelt and I picked it up. Don't you fear, my child. I'll keep the ghouls away. I'll keep you safe at night, and I'll be your friend by day. But when it comes to friends, I have very few. So please don't leave me, darling. My heart will be torn in two. This didn't seem quite right. I turned the paper over and read the back. Madame Zoe's Worry Dolls, your friend till the end. I thought that this was really strange. I paged through the book again and started at the beginning. It looked like a normal diary. Little things were written about friends at school, conflicts, and conflicts with parents. So one thing caught my eye. Grandma bought me a doll for my birthday. It's nice, I guess, but scary. Mom said I couldn't give it away. I don't want it, though. And a few pages later was a similar entry. I keep Grandma's doll in a drawer. I don't like his eyes. It stares at me at night. It's creepy. And there are several like this. The doll watches watches me whenever I go. It heads turns, and none of my other toys have come alive before. It's weird, but neat. I decided to name my doll Aggie. She's not so bad, and she told me today that we're going to be friends. Aggie doesn't like my mom, or dad, or my grandma. I don't know why. Maybe because they think I play with her too much. The entries became more and more disturbing as I read them. Aggie made me mad today. She called my mom bad things. She couldn't stop talking, so I ripped off her eye. She didn't like that, and I said sorry later. Aggie is my best friend. I love Aggie. I hate my parents. Help. After the last entry, there was nothing but scribble and symbols, and a chill struck my spine. I felt acid or vomit rising my throat. Something was terribly wrong. I had been in the room for hours and hadn't realized it, and hastily, I made my way downstairs as quickly as I could. The house was empty, and the investigators were no longer there. All that was left was puddles of blood and a mess. The bodies had already been removed. I glanced around the room, and my eyes skimming over anything that could mean anything. She did this to herself, you know. I nearly shit myself at the sound of the hollow female voice. It sounded like it was right next to me, old and ancient. I spun around looking for the source and halted abruptly. As they passed the doll I had seen earlier, one of the buttons were gone. No, it's impossible. And the voice came again. She did it to herself. There was no movement anywhere, but the sound came from the direction of the doll. I felt crazy for doing it, but I spoke. Aggie? And yes, the voice replied, almost pleased that I was speaking to her. That was it. I couldn't hold it anymore. I vomited. This was far too much for me to handle. Oh dear, she said to me. Poor thing, come and sit down. You're not feeling well. What? What the fuck? I choked, swearing to God that I was having a dream. Regardless, I bit. Did it to herself. What did she do to herself? Who? Yes, the girl, she did it to herself. I saw the whole thing. She killed her family, one at a time. Granny was the first to go, and she used her little hands. The doll's head rolled over to the side as if someone pushed it, ripped them apart, then herself. She tore out her own eye. You know, I saw it. Then she ripped out her own throat. It's an amazing thing, possession, and before she even knew it, she had torn her own insides out like a gutted fish. That's what she get for being a little bitch. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was being spoken to by a fucking puppet. A doll, a toy. It was talking and moving. A fucking plaything just described to me a terrible murder. It was horrifying but alluring. I had to be crazy. I had to. But I moved closer to listen and to ask. Why? I said, my eyebrows furrowed in confusion. The doll simply shook her head. Shh, don't ask. It'll be okay. A rush of hot air filled my head. My mind was suddenly blank. My eyes were drooping and tired. I was losing control of myself. My hands suddenly lifted and made their way to the front of my shirt, fingers gripping at my flesh. It hurt, but I didn't want to stop. Don't tell my secret, Aggie whispered to me. All I did was nod. My nails began digging into my skin. Blood began to trickle, and it had started appearing through my shirt. Within seconds, my fingers were embedded into my flesh, the first two knuckles sinking into the warmth. It hurt. It hurt. I felt like I was on fire. No, I started, unable to control my movements. No. My flesh was tearing, the muscles rending into, and she had me. She had me completely as I felt the pressure of my own organs pressing against the muscle and membranes. This was it. I couldn't stop. Okay, that was Aggie. Yeah, again, sorry. I don't know why. Every time I do these like creepypasta stories, like I don't know. It's weird. It's not like an added pressure when I do it, but you guys can definitely tell. Like in the beginning, I was like really stiff while reading, and then I just told myself, "Hey, it's a video. Why should I be kind of stressed about it?" So yeah, hopefully y'all enjoyed. Sorry for me kind of rushing the beginning of it, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, that was Aggie. A lot of people didn't like the story for some reason. Like looking at the comments of this, people didn't like how Aggie made a girl kill her own family pretty much. But I thought it was pretty good though. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and consider subscribing. It helps out the channel and it is free and all that good stuff. Use code goons at gamerstuff.gg. I'm not sponsored, but I keep pushing the content. They will probably sponsor me one day. So that's a bye everyone.